Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Talk Thursday. Today, we speak with Bishop Buhain Jr. He is the former auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Manila. He resigned in 2003 following the retirement of late Manila Archbishop Jaime Cardinal Sin. He joins us today for the first time to answer accusations of sexual and financial indiscretions. Good day, Bishop Buhain.
Good day, Maria.
Thank you so much for coming to speak about this. You resigned in 2003. Around that time and a little bit before, you faced two charges against you. The first was church sources were saying that you fathered a child with a woman, and then the second has to do with financial charges against you while you were president of Radio Veritas. You've decided to speak today about it.
All right. Officially, that means in writing, I've always asked that I be given a chance. For example, in my last meeting with the head of the Congregation for Bishops in Rome, Cardinal Re, he said, "I heard you're withdrawing your resignation." I said, "No, but I asked that I be given, well, what we would now call a day in court. Means that I be given due process. That means the charges be spelled out so that I be given a chance to make my response."
Yes.
And so far, silence. So, then came the book.
Yes, but even so, the church leadership stayed silent about it. You resigned, and you also stayed silent about it. I mean, you were a very good soldier. Why?
Well, okay. At the beginning, and Cardinal Sin knew this, I wanted a formal investigation.
This is into the sexual or the financial?
Well, maybe both.
Both.
Actually, what was perhaps more recent was the sexual allegation.
Right.
But there were,
Well, during the time you retired, there were two other archbishops who basically were disgraced, right, in sexual scandals.
Yes.
Can you walk us through the charges that you faced?
Well, okay. Now that you brought it in, first there was the charge against Bishop Tom Yalung,
Yes.
of having fathered two children. Then a charge against Bishop Ted Bacani, my tukayo, of some kind of sexual harassment.
Correct.
And then came the charge against me. So that
Correct.
was the third. We were all three auxiliary bishops of Cardinal Sin, the Archbishop of Manila.
Right.
So
This is in 2003, 2002?
a little, yes.
Okay.
2002. So perhaps then you'll understand the frame of reference of the late Cardinal Sin. By the way, tomorrow is his death anniversary. I think it's his seventh death anniversary. So, I had and I still have tremendous respect and admiration for Cardinal Sin. Now, at that time, so my official response to the then nuncio was, because he said you have three options. First, then second, you had only two options. Namely, the first three options were either you resign, you ask for official investigation, or you keep quiet. Then later on, he changed his mind and called for me again and says, you have only two options now. It's either resign or ask for a formal investigation. And I opted for formal investigation. And to initiate that, I asked in writing for a list of faults.
Yes.
Charges, call it charges,
correct.
whatever. So that I said I could, I know what not to do,
Yes.
and also I could improve.
Yes.
No answer. Then came Cardinal Sin called for me. And he says, you know what has been happening. I know you have been always a man of obedience. So I'm asking you to please keep quiet for the good of the church. And he wrote the nuncio to the effect that he knew me well enough to guarantee that I would keep quiet. And so I did. But your first question is, I think my first statement is like, I've been asking officially.
So you decided to keep quiet at the request of Cardinal Sin,
Yes.
and you've stayed quiet, and yet behind the scenes you've continued to ask for
Yes.
a chance to clear your name,
Yes.
because your decision to stay quiet came at great personal cost.
It's true, although I must say, Maria, that I was looking forward to retirement. I think I've gone through enough.
Yes.
I said, remember, this is martial law when I was responsible for Radio Veritas, etc.,
Yes, yes.
etc., and so on and so forth.
Which is the time when we met. But Bishop, still resigning under a haze of wrongdoing.
That made it very painful, and that's why I said, I remember I told the nuncio, and I remember I told Cardinal Rey, I said, look, I have no problems about resigning. I want to resign. I just want that my name be clear, that I be given a day in court, or at least that you hear my side of the story.
Correct.
And,
So, did you father a child with a woman?
no, and I have the sworn statement, duly notarized, to that effect.
But
Now-
the instances around this seem suspicious. Like this woman said that it was artificial insemination. Is this right?
That is also in the sworn statement.
Okay.
Then also, but then afterwards, the nuncio said she called up and said that she was being pressured to sign the document.
That you were pressuring her
Well,
to sign
she-
the document.
it
Yeah,
just-
yeah.
she
Or
was
she
being,
was being pressured.
pressured.
Okay.
But I took I had enough foresight to bring a priest witness, and he has also executed a notarized sworn statement to the effect that everything was explained to the lady and that there was no attempt to try to force her, because I remember I tell her, all I'm asking is that you tell the truth.
Yes. Why would somebody lie about something like this?
I really don't know. All I can do at this point in time, you and I can only speculate.
Yes.
We'll have to ask.
Did you have any enemies? Why was something like this? If her statement is true, if your statement is true, why would someone do this? Given the context of that time period.
It is possible that, this was at the time that they were going to divide the archdiocese into separate dioceses.
Yes.
Which, of course, became a reality.
Right.
And I remember that was the first time, the very first time the nuncio called for me in connection with what you're talking about.
Correct.
And he said, look, I would like to inform you that you will not be appointed to any of the jurisdictions. And I remember very distinctly my response. I feel a sense of relief.
But Bishop, you were a rising star of the church at that point, right?
Okay, that may be true in terms of perception, but for me, that's not important. What is important is I do my job, and I do not ask. I am assigned. Because that way, I know, well, if I'm assigned, and if I'm assigned by my superior, then, the Lord, God will be with me. He will help me. Because believe you me, Maria, I know my own inadequacies. Meaning to say, I know what I know, but I also know what I do not know.
Yes.
I know my strengths, but I also know my weaknesses.
Well, let me ask you before we pull up a little bit broader about the financial charges that you faced. When you were president of Radio Veritas, official records say about 20 million pesos was donated to Radio Veritas. You collected that much, but some of the informal numbers went as high as 100 million pesos, and you've been charged with either taking away some of that money, siphoning it off, or misspending it. Please, I guess, can you tell me what it was you faced and what happened?
Okay, the statements came actually way after.
Okay.
After the event. Let me
Yes.
put it that way. Now, what happened? Of course, it was mentioned that there was a one-day telethon asking for, that was over the government TV station that was
Yes.
seized
Yes.
by the Enrile and Ramos.
Yes. And for the
forces.
20-somethings, the role of Radio Veritas in 1986 was tremendous. You know, it was the first call to Filipinos to come to EDSA. So,
Yes.
and you were handling this then. So there was a telethon.
And then we told them what happened. That means our 3 transmitters were destroyed
Yes.
by forces.
Yes.
And we are asking for help. And I was impressed, really. Now, Maria, I do not know whether you're familiar with the economic situation at that time.
I was working in Channel 4, in PTV4 at that point. Yeah.
Then I know your official line. But our unofficial line is, of course, I think we were down
Yes.
economically. So when we were able to raise about 20 million, roughly, okay, let's just to have a 20
Yes.
million
Yes.
pesos,
Yes.
20 million pesos. I was tremendously gratified. I said, wow, we Filipinos are capable of tremendous generosity.
Yes. That was an amazing time period. But so is it 20 million or 100 million?
It's 20 million. I do not know where they got the number 100. It is possible that was supposedly the target for the telethon.
I see.
But I'm not even sure at this point in time.
Yes.
But you know how targets are.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think we even reach 100 in pledges.
Yes.
But you know how pledges are.
Yes, yes.
So for me to get 50% or 30%, that's already great, especially since I was familiar with the economic situation of our people.
Correct.
So it's about 18 million locally, and then about $10,000 from abroad,
International.
mainly from, again, Filipino workers or those of Filipino descent.
And did you account for that money?
Yes, that's all. Everything was recorded in
Yes.
the financial books of Radio Veritas, which is really break. By the way, that is the official name of the corporation.
Okay.
Philippine Radio Educational and Information Center. So the 2 divisions.
Yes.
Okay, now fine. So that was accounted, and the decision taken by the management was not to use print. There was an idea to come up with a whole page. We said no. Why? The main reasons against that was, number one, who were the owners of the newspapers then?
Yes.
I think you and I know who.
Of course.
They were right.
Yes,
okay.
yes, yes.
So that means, why will we use that? Number 2, and this is positive, the people knew us as a radio station. The people have given us money as a radio station in order to rehabilitate our radio station. Let us thank them. And we did. We thanked by name and also amounts. But over the radio, no use of the print medium. And I think it is, for me, it is a correct decision.
Yes. Why were these charges thrown at you? Where did they come from?
It is possible. I mean, again, at this point, I can speculate, although at least I know of one source.
Okay.
Because somebody, a fellow cleric, wrote the cardinal and asked and mentioned these points about Radio Veritas, about other Pius XII, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And the cardinal endorsed the letter to me.
Okay.
And he said, please take care of this discreetly. So what I did is I wrote my response to Cardinal Sin, complete with documents. Now, because the matter of recording, and also, by the way, these things were audited by Sisip Gores and Velayo.
Okay.
So, and they did not find any anomalous transaction
Yes,
for
yes.
that matter. So, anyway, but then came this special assembly of the priests. It was officially to, in connection with Tom Yalong, Bishop Tom Yalong, and Bishop Ted Bacani, but somebody had warned me, I think it's the same cleric who wrote the letter, that I would be the next. And so I gave a copy of my folder to Cardinal Sin, and I asked, could I please address the priests? And so I did. So
you addressed the priests, yes.
And I told them, of course I told them, look, this is just among us. It's something confidential. Unfortunately, the same cleric leaked it out to the print medium.
Okay.
The very next day that there was a meeting, just like that. And therefore, I had to call representatives of these newspapers that came out, and I showed them, look, these are the documents about the lady and so on and so forth. All I ask is, please do not mention the name of the lady. That's for me out of respect.
Yes.
So I did what I could do. I did what I should do.
You said earlier that I was asking you why on the sexual charges against you. You said that it was leading to the breaking up of Manila into Archdiocese.
It was on that occasion. Let me put that.
Okay.
Way.
So I'll ask that same question again then. Why would somebody do this? What are the motivations? Why were these charges thrown against you?
Maria, of course, it is the motivation is the motivation of another person. I can only speculate.
Yes, Bishop.
But I think, be...
Well, let me ask a more direct. How political is the Catholic Church? How political was it at that point?
Well, let me put it this way. For me, I'm convinced as long as there are three persons, minimum three, there will be politics.
Okay.
2 against 1, A and B against C, or B and C against A. So, in any grouping, or even institution where there are several persons, of course, there will be groupings.
Sure. What was your relationship like with Bishop Soc Villegas?
Well, he was secretary, and then later on, he was auxiliary bishop, and then basically, especially when Cardinal Sin was very sick already, he was basically the one. I remember quite early when I noted that, I suggested to then Monsignor Soc, I said, why don't we set up a team, a group, even if it's just 3 persons, who would examine the problems, and then with our recommended solution, and then you present that to the Cardinal.
Yes.
And the Cardinal will make his choice. I did that because that's how I would work always. When I present a problem to the Cardinal, I learned my lesson. I would always have an evaluation and alternatives, but I will also put my own suggested decision. But it's up to him. And believe you me, that's one of the things I admire with Cardinal Sin. He had tremendous intuition. I used to tell him, Eminence, I think you are Niño Bonito of the Holy Spirit. Because, he...
But Cardinal Sin asked you to stay quiet at your expense.
Okay.
Again, why did you do it?
Well, if it is one making the sacrifice in favor of the many, why shouldn't? Isn't that the example of my Lord and Master? I mean, come on. We're supposed to be Christians, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, then the bigger question is, how transparent should the Catholic Church be? How can a Catholic hold my church accountable? What are the boundaries there for you?
The problem, Maria, it is rather complicated. We talk of the Catholic Church, even if just the Catholic Church in the Philippines.
Yes.
Strictly speaking, that is a loose federation of several members. That means of dioceses and archdioceses.
Correct.
And each archdiocese is, of course, headed, and of course, by the Pope, by the Bishop, and the Bishop is again, as of now, according to law, accountable only to the Pope. So, now, but that there are attempts on the part of smaller groupings
Yes.
within the church, there are attempts to be more transparent. And I'm grateful for that. Because, I mean, let's face it, the people have given.
Yes.
We should tell them how
Yes.
how much we received,
Yes.
and tell them how we spent.
We have a far younger cardinal now, Cardinal Tagle, very young. Have you spoken to him about your case? He's
Yes.
a fellow Caviteño, right?
Well, not spoken verbally, but somehow through my lawyer.
And
Silence. He says, well, to talk to the nuncio about it. And well, I did that. I did even go. I went even to the Congregation for Bishops.
yes.
So,
Again, you took the blow and you think that was the right thing to do.
yes, it's very painful. I'm not saying it's not very painful. And that's perhaps the reason why I still would like. I have only one name. I have only one reputation. And I'd like that cleared before I meet my Maker. You know, I am preparing for my final exams. So, at this period, sana man lamang before I meet my Maker, sana.
The church has gone through a lot of permutations, changes,
Yes.
challenges.
Yes.
This is one of the challenges that the church has gone through. How would you describe the church today?
Well, let me put this way. If you're going to ask me for a word, I am hopeful. I am full of hope. Not only as a person, but, well, definitely, not only as a Christian, but even as a person. Because there are these changes for the better in little, well, okay, call them little spots, little portions. But that could, the number could increase and therefore could
Despite being a victim, which is actually, if, you had to, it tarnished your name. You still believe in the processes.
Yes, because the process is there. I mean, for example, like due process is there,
Yes.
officially enshrined in our code of canon law.
Yes.
The ones implementing could either be forgetful, they forgot about it,
Right.
or they didn't know how to do it, and they didn't want to ask those who knew, or I don't know.
In government, part of the reason journalists are there is we help shine the light and help leaders make the right decisions for transparency. In a church that keeps a lot of its processes shrouded, where do you draw the line between holding the men who carry out those responsibilities accountable?
Well, if, for example, the reason for my hope is on the ground level.
Yes.
So the groundswell can increase and hopefully reach the top.
You're waiting. Oh, do you think this generation will wait for this, or will the church lose its relevance?
Well, lose its relevance, I doubt it.
It survived 2,000 years.
Yes, come on.
Yes.
And worse things than this.
Yes.
So, that it will survive, definitely. That it will change, yes. Now, how fast? That's a big question because normally it's not that fast.
Yes.
Unless there are certain triggers like Vatican II. But even Vatican II was prepared, for example, by certain movements.
Yes. You said that you wrote to Cardinal Tagle. What about Bishop Villegas? I mean, did you go to him for help later on?
No, I didn't, because when he was still in the Archdiocese, it was really still Cardinal Sin, basically. So I would go to Cardinal Sin. And when Cardinal Sin told me
When Cardinal Sin,
told me to keep quiet, then that for
You
me
did.
is the end.
that was it.
That's it.
That's I remember when you resigned in 2003 and there was a great a black shadow around it. Is this church politics? Is that all it is? Is that the way you would say it? Or am I putting words in your mouth? Is this church politics? Are you just accepting this?
It could be, it could be an instance of what we would call church politics.
Yes.
On the part of some of the participants or the actors.
Yes.
It could also be something else. I don't know.
The church has faced globally problems with sex, with the vow of celibacy. Is that still relevant today?
Well, there are arguments in favor because it's true.
Yes.
For example, I could not have accepted my assignments if I had to worry about a family.
Yes.
It was easier. It was easier for me to accept my assignments because I'm just thinking of myself. I don't even think of my family,
yes,
where I came from, because they can take care of themselves. But if I were burdened, then it would be a bit more difficult. But there are also certain arguments in favor of. I think there will be a slow change in that matter. For example, at the moment we have, former Anglican or Episcopalian priests who have
yes,
converted
yes,
and also been ordained as Catholic priests. We have already, of course, our married deacons and then plus those. So that could be the beginning of a change.
Yes.
At this point, all we can do is...
How would you rate the way the church has dealt with there have been many controversies now, and they return every now and then. I think partly because these are the men who are running the church, right? And not everyone is perfect. How would you rate the way the church has handled the charges of sex, pedophilia, and different popes have had to handle it? How do you look at this? Has the church dealt with it the right way in your mind?
Well, definitely on the international level, I think it is dealing with it, delicately, but in the right direction.
Okay.
Again, on the diocesan level, it depends.
On
there
each one.
Yes.
And in your case, a normal person would say it's unjust to not have given you a day in court. How did the church do the right thing?
Well, I personally feel and think no, because I feel and think I am entitled to due process, and I was not given that day in court. So is that unjust? Yes, I think so. Now, I do not flaw the institution. I flaw some members, maybe leading members of the institution.
Yes. Until today, you can't say Mass in Metro Manila, right? These are some of the things.
Yes, allegedly, again, that's one of the points also.
Was it Cardinal Rosales who
Yes.
banned you from saying Mass?
No. I was about to celebrate my golden jubilee,
yes,
of ordination as priest. And being a priest of the Archdiocese, one of the priests invited me to say it in his church, and he's a good friend.
Yes.
Then the bishops, including Cardinal Rosales, together with his auxiliary bishops, had just been to Rome, and one of them asked to see me in
Yes.
Tagaytay.
Yes.
And I was, of course, surprised. I said,
Yes.
What's this? And then he began by first showing me the pictures of their Quran and said, what's really the point?
Yes.
And he said, the Cardinal has heard that you were going to celebrate your Mass, wants to remind you that you may not say public Mass. And I said, on the basis of what? Because that was the first time I would hear. And then he gave me two documents. One document was a copy of which I had because it was signed by the nuncio, not this nuncio, but nuncio then. And another one was sent to him.
Yes.
It's basically a covering letter.
Yes.
And of the ones, and I was familiar with the document, but I carefully reread the documents. And I said, please check. I am not sure whether I read the documents accurately enough. Please read the documents and show me where it says I may not. And then he says, well, it seems there was a verbal instruction. Oh, verbal instruction. And I said, but a verbal instruction is not valid for a penalty. And this is a penalty. This is a limitation of a basic human right. And there is a principle, by the way,
Correct.
in canon law.
Yes.
And I checked it with other canon lawyers, and they said it's true. But, well, he chose to implement, so, and I suppose the same thing is being implemented. So, there is
You didn't get
allegedly.
angry?
No, I didn't. Because, Maria, I mean, you don't get angry with the messenger.
I wish people would say that about journalists. No.
I know. I'm just saying, and maybe I'm saying it aloud precisely to
Yes.
remind us,
Yes,
not only
yes.
us, but all of us.
Yes.
Yes.
So you didn't get angry with the messenger, and so you say there's allegedly a ban against you saying mass in Manila. I guess no one has really stopped you. So basically, you followed every single internal request made to you that were actually all difficult and actually portrayed you in a bad light.
I think so. At least I tried my best.
Okay, I forget you're bishop. You're a bishop, so I will. Well, I guess this is my overarching question again is it's very rare for a member of the church to actually. It's an old boys club. You talked about anytime three people are together, there's politics, and as a Catholic, part of the difficulty with any institution is that if it's not transparent, how do you hold them accountable? You've told us, you've given us some insight into how your case was handled. You still speak very respectfully of both the church and Cardinal Sin, even some of the bishops you've dealt with who are also part of this milieu. How, for a believer, do we hold the church accountable?
Well, first of all, number one, I think I told you of attempts of little pockets
Yes.
to be accountable.
What exactly are those that you're talking about?
I know there are some parish priests who are doing their job to be accountable.
Yes.
Yes, I think not only some, maybe many. I really don't know. There are. I think also a few bishops are trying to be, which is already a step upwards, right?
Yes.
So there is hope, let me put it that way. There is hope. And for whatever it's worth, maybe my own story would be helpful. Especially, definitely you are helping me by allowing me to publicly talk about it.
Thank you for doing so.
So, and as I said, I still try to be Christ-like. I don't want to blame anybody.
But in your own room, you cannot be this
Yes.
charitable.
Well, I have bad thoughts, let me put it that way.
Bishop, okay. We will take the bad thoughts.
But I do try to.
Again, I'll go back. The punishment that you've taken, you also allegedly cannot reside in Manila. Is that right?
Yes. That
Why
is,
so strict? Again.
Well, again, strictly speaking, I don't look on it as a penalty because the fact of the matter is, I was the one who suggested that to the then nuncio. Reason, well, I'm really from Cavite. I'm from Bacoor, Cavite, but I have
Yes.
never served Cavite. So I thought, when I retire, let me start serving my kababayans naman. So for me, that is not a penalty. That was my option. What I objected to is to make it a condition. Otherwise, they would make public the reasons for my retirement. I said, I don't hide that. I tell people why. I resigned. So,
Your last thoughts?
well, as I said, no, I have been hurt, yes, but I still remain hopeful. There are changes on the air, not only on the air, but beginning to come.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask one last question, which is the church weaker today than it was in 1986? During the time you were running Radio Veritas, last December, the RH bill became law after 14 years in Congress, and then now you have a very different generation. How would you look at this?
Yeah. Well, for example, I mean, if I compare it to the 80s, well, there was cardinal sin. Now, so of course, also the new generation, but I think our people, even our young people, can be galvanized to action.
Yes.
If there would be, well, a charismatic leader or several charismatic leaders who
Yes.
would explain to them and say, let's do this.
The way your case was handled by the church, did it weaken the church?
Well, I really don't, probably not, I don't know. Maybe in terms of people asking questions or having lingering doubts, maybe. But there is a saying in law or in the courts, a person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. I'm afraid that in the case of clerics, a cleric is presumed guilty until he proves himself innocent. And that, for me, a very clear example, is my case.
And how do you look at Aris Rufo's book? I see you have a copy of it.
Yes,
The Altar of Secrets. Altar of Secrets.
Yes.
Is this good or bad?
Well, it's full of, I think, let me put it this way. There was insufficient knowledge of the facts. And
Perhaps because few speak, right?
also, but isn't it the responsibility of the journalist, of the investigative journalist, not to rely on one testimony, but to at least check that independently? Come on, doesn't CNN do this? We heard this, but we cannot verify it. We do not have independent verification, right? That's the least, that's the minimum that we have to do.
But I think Bishop, again, Aris works with us, but I know that he did try to get in touch with you, so you decided not to speak. Is
No,
that correct?
I didn't. I didn't get any notice.
Okay,
See,
so
allegedly there was a note or a letter sent to my PO box. If that arrived,
Yes.
there would have been a notice. And even if there's no notice, my driver regularly goes to the post office and collects all my mail.
Okay.
Other people's letters reach, but not this alleged letter or request. And for me, well, let me put it this way. Since I was there 24/7,
Yes.
I think he could have written more.
He could have written more. Do you think the Altar of Secrets is good for the church? Is holding the church accountable good?
As an objective, yes, it's a valid objective.
Yes.
Now, there, of course, you're talking of means.
Yes.
Whether this book is a good means or not, that's a big question mark. Because, well, again, usual, so when there is an attack, the tendency is to defend oneself. So rather than produce the necessary, the expected or
Yes.
the longed for, the
Yes.
desired effect, we might have a counter. So I do not know.
Okay, and now really your final thoughts. After we've gone through this, I've kept you long.
It's all right, Doria. Thank you very much, really, for the chance to be able to at least air my side of the story. Let me put it that way. I do not say it is the only side, it's my side.
Bishop, there's more you should say. You should tell us about the politics of the instances because it gives us understanding of the processes of men who perform holy duties.
It's a bit, well, for me, it's a question of trying. I can, for example, in the case of the allegations against me, I have documentary proof. So,
yes.
No,
and
so
you address them with,
yes.
with Aris, yes.
And then we would, that means to say it easy enough to recall, but at my tender age, it's a bit more difficult to recall. Plus also, remember, I belong in a sense to an older generation already. The ones who are influential or responsible are younger generations. So I cannot, I dare not. It would not be prudent for me to evaluate them. I don't know how they are performing because...
Well, thank you very much for speaking with us today. We've been speaking with Teodoro Buhain Jr. He's the former auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Manila. The first time he is speaking about the charges he's faced over the last more than 20 years. Thank you for watching Talk Thursday. Send your thoughts, your questions. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. I'm Maria Ressa. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
You